Gee, I don't know. Well, we've known John Bedini for a long time, and John told us about the conference, Norm and I, and so that's how we first heard about it. And then we got in contact. We heard that I read some things that Paul Babcock had done. This was early on in our development of our motor, and I thought, well, this is a guy we probably need to talk to. And then I heard about it from Paul, and Paul was speaking here every year, and eventually I ended up coming up and demoed our motor, and then last year I spoke, and I was asked to come back again this year. My name is Michael Clarke, and that's Clarke spelled with an E on the end. If I was Spanish, I'd say it Clarke. Well, I feel like John Bedini is kind of if not the father of this whole free energy development or quest or whatever you might want to call it, but he, because of his knowledge and the things that he had done and built and designed, and he's like light years ahead of so many people, and it was a blessing to us that we were considered friends of his, that he would allow us in and kind of divulge the things. And like with my partner Norm, of course Norm has known John since 1980 and 1979, 1980, and because of that, the discussions that he and John had just kind of led us down this path, and being able to meet him and go into his shop and to see the things that he did. He made a lot of, the really cool thing is he made a lot of toys for kids. I mean, electronic kind of toys, but would make them think. They were toys that would make a kid think. And I think back, like when we were children, we didn't have electronic toys, but we had like erector sets, and when it was building different things. And these kids, John developed some things these kids can play in the electronic arena, not get hurt, and kind of make some really cool things. There were some really neat things about what John had about him. I think he was a really great person. Well, I think that John, of course, he had a lot of electronics training from when he was in the military. I think he got a lot of his advanced training there. He did some really advanced things when he was in the Army back in the days of Vietnam. But the thing of it is, he turned that into what I consider, he was trying to turn that into something that would benefit, the things that the Army was teaching to develop things to destroy people, and John took that and was developing things to help people. And that's one of the neat things about the Bedini brothers. John and Gary really worked towards that, and they were persecuted for that. And I'm not going to get into all that, but they moved to northern Idaho because of the persecution that they experienced in their home in California. The thing of it is because the things that we're doing and the things that John did and the things that he taught us and that he brought out of the woodwork, that he put out in the public domain, was all things that is so away from conventional thinking. And that's the thing. So anytime you're different, people are going to react in a lot of times adverse ways because it's not what they consider the normal, and not being in the normal realm as they see it. So, as has been the case, this year we've been married 49 years. We got married basically when we were children, and there are so many times, I have a hard time talking about it. There are so many times when I needed somebody propping me up, and she has been there and pushed. And I'm not going to say that every time that I loved her pushing, but it's because of that. And we've had a lot of success, I feel like, because when we got married, I'll just tell you that when we got married, we had $50 to our name. We had one fork, one spoon, and one knife, and we shared. I mean, we had nothing. And we've had 5 beautiful children, and we live in an absolutely gorgeous home. I mean, people come to our home, come to our place. Can we buy your house, or can we trade? But when we've created that. We didn't buy that home beautiful. That was an ugly, nasty land filled with Russian olive trees that would cut you, and we have made that a Garden of Eden. And it's a place where we don't necessarily need to ever go on vacation, because we can just go sit in our yard and just enjoy it. And they all lived. I think our children, one of the things our children learn from us is his work is a good thing, and that they can have a lot of success if they work. And I think that more than anything, I think that has done more to help them. And I think, they still come to us. I mean, our kids will come to us for advice to this day, and I don't like to give it to them, because if something goes wrong, then we get the blame. But they do, and it's just that way. I don't know if I coined the phrase, but I hadn't heard it. But saying we've cut the cord to the phone company, we need to cut the cord to the power company, and I think for the most part I think people can and should do that. It will give them an independence that they've never enjoyed before. And it will take more responsibility. There's a lot of personal responsibility that goes along with that. But I think if people would utilize this, they would become freer. And the thing of it is, my opinion is we got power all around us. There's all this power all around us that's readily available. And so why are we paying for power when it's all around us, and we can develop our own? It's something, I can't stand politics. I hate it. But in this country, it's all around you. Everything is political here. It's insane here how everything is so political. But it is that way because in the United States of America, we are the government. Everything should be political in a sense, because we are responsible for what happens. And so if you don't like the way things are going, then you need to be involved. And if you don't get involved, you may get something you don't like. And that was evident, it's been evident in our area with people didn't, well, let me go back. I just remember going to city council meetings, and there was always a woman there. And that woman, as far as I was concerned, was dumb as a box of rocks. And she always asked these absolutely ridiculous questions. But somebody took it upon themselves to support her for mayor, and she became mayor. And then if you think that ridiculousness was bad before, when she got power, then it became insane. And of course, thankfully, she was voted out. But it's that kind of thing. And if we're not aware and if we don't get involved, we get what we deserve. In the beginning, the counties were responsible to educate the children within the county. And then there became state boards of education, and the state boards of education took power, and then there became a national board of education, and the federal government took over. And the federal government now drives what are being taught. And the insanity of that is this, is that the simple truths that we were taught 40 years ago, 50 years ago, well, 55, whatever. Anyway, things that were taught then they're not being taught. When I see the things that my grandchildren were being taught in the public school, it was insane. I'm going, what is the use of sending our children to school? They're not learning anything of any value. Well, I'm going to use this as an example because it's something that's out there, but they spend time in school teaching children how to have sex. And excuse me, but how did we as a species survive all these many thousands of years without having that being taught in the schools? Because that is something that is natural to being alive. And yet they spend all this time teaching that in school, taking away from teaching things that are important. What's going to be more important for us as a society? As a society, do we need engineers? Do we need people that know mathematics? Do we know people that know music? Do we need people that are good at writing or these great thinkers? They're not going to learn that in those classes, and they're not. And in fact, that's one of the things in schools is we're not taught to think; we're taught to regurgitate, and that's what I see. We're not taught to think; we're taught to just spit back whatever it is that they taught us. It had to do with the RPG motor. That's a reactive power generator. So what we have developed is actually a reactive power generator motor, or motor generator if you want to put it that way. So our motor is about collecting the reactive power and keeping our batteries charged, and at the same time we're running a generator that provides useful power. Well, the way it's going, it can be used, we feel like it can be developed into something that can be used on many levels. I feel like it can be used for cabins, for small homes, and eventually larger homes. And well, our home's large, so I guess if I'm going to get my house running out, it'll be good for larger homes. But I think it's something that could be used in electric cars. I think it's something that would increase the range of electric cars tremendously, because their batteries are constantly being charged, or your supercapacitors that are driving the cars can be continuously charged while being driven. We have a vineyard. We grow organic grapes that people can use for juicing and that kind of thing. We have a big U-pick grape vineyard and raise cattle. And
where do you get your water from?
We pump it out of the we have it right out of the river, but we don't use it. We just have wells that we drill. We pump out of. Yeah, there's some things that we have. My wife and I have talked about putting in, so that if indeed we lost all that kind of power, we would be able to pump our own water by hand if we needed to, or small electric pump. I like to be very careful about that, because I don't want to make it sound like John and I were like tight. I mean, we talked when I came up here. He talked to Norm, and because him and Norm had been friends for a long time.
And you eavesdropped?
I did.
Oh yeah, I do that too.
Absolutely. But I got to be in there, and he, and he showed me what was going on. He was just very gracious. He gave me a copy of his book, and the thing about it is that book, we used that book because the information they'd put in there. We used that book to help build our circuitry, and John gave that to us. I mean, he just put that out there. He's put things on the internet. He's put things out there that anybody can use if they have the desire, and he gave it free. I can't think of anything greater that he could have done. I mean, he shared a lot of knowledge with us, and it got a lot of people excited about doing the right things, I think. So, in my opinion, and when we talk about John, but I can't talk about John without talking about his brother Gary, because Gary and John were, they went together no matter what, and as brothers they were close, and the way they worked together, and I have to say that I loved visiting with Gary every bit as much as I loved visiting with John, and it was just, I think it's part of my life I won't forget. It was monumental in a really quiet, awesome way. We just, one of the things that my wife and I did, we decided a long time, when we first saw the new Ford Thunderbirds that were coming out in the late 1900s and in the early 2000s, we decided we wanted one of those cars, and we got one. We bought one, got a really great deal on one. And one of the great pleasures we have is on days like today, putting the top down and driving the back roads, and getting off the rat race and just going out. And that was the day we got to do that, and we just had a very pleasant, intimate day.